Okay, welcome. Welcome to our webinar, Research Data Services Landscape. How do you start and where does your library fit in? My name is April Wright, and I am the Outreach and Education Librarian for Region 1 of the network of the National Library of Medicine, located in Baltimore, Maryland. Co-teaching with me is April Hobbs, Assessment Librarian at the MUSC Libraries and former Research and Data Strategist for Region 2, located in Charleston, South Carolina. Um, and also joining us is Margie Shepard, who will be doing our technical support. Thank you, Margie. Before we begin, I would like to point out that you can ask, please put your questions in the Q&A and use the chat for just general comments. But we do ask that you use put your questions, any questions that you have into the Q&A. We will also have time for questions toward the end of the session. And let us know if you have any technical issues, and we will be happy to assist. This webinar provides MLACE as well as credit toward the data services specialization. So we will be providing the link to the survey at the end. Okay, the general objective for this webinar is to talk about data services and how to get started with it from both the perspective of those in libraries and those interested in working in data services. So upon completion, the attendees will be able to describe the common types of research data services offered in health sciences libraries, explain the current trends and challenges in data services, and determine next steps for their practice. We will have we will be pausing for questions. As we look at the agenda, we're going to have an overview of the different types of data services, the benefits of having data services in your library, current trends and landscapes, and next steps. And then we'll pause for questions after the benefits section and after current trends. Yeah, we do ask that you stay muted to minimize the background noise. Now, what is research data services? Well, currently, data services can be seen as two fairly distinct tracks. One is data management and curation, which deals with things like file naming conventions, data organizations, metadata, sharing data through repositories, and data discovery. Now, this track also influences institutional, funder, and publisher policies around data sharing, data storage, and data ownership. The data science and data literacy track deals with skills for analyzing data, including programming languages, data cleaning, and data visualization. This track also contributes to the development of institutional policies around permitted software, storage solutions, and computing. It's important to note that the broader environment around data and research is constantly evolving. And this is going to affect the support services needed. So while the idea of these two distinct tracks makes sense right now, that can change. Another area in which many data services librarians have provided support is scientific reproducibility. One aspect of reproducibility is being able to run an experiment with the same methodology as the previous experiment and get results that are not the same as, but are consistent with the original experiment. Another aspect is to be able to take the same data, run the same analysis, and get the same results. Reproducibility is an area that encompasses both tracks, the data management side and the data science side. For example, good data management will result in well-documented data, which will facilitate more efficient data cleaning. Now, it's important to note that while these two types of data support have points of interaction, the skill sets for these tracks are very different, and many data librarians will stick to one of these tracks. Those providing introductory data services, particularly as a new service for the library, may offer informational level services for both tracks, such as a LibGuide on data sources, data tools, and data management tips. However, as our knowledge deepens, the services start aligning with the tracks. Now, how does RDS differ for health sciences libraries? Well, for libraries and health science institutions, particularly those with clinical areas, there is greater focus on, um, you know, privacy and de-identification, secure storage, and use of HIPAA compliant tools like REDCap, supporting researchers working to deposit in biomedical disciplines specific repositories, such as NIH supported repositories, increase emphasis on data use agreements to protect human subjects and intellectual property, accessing and use of protected data, such as EHR data, and implications of data ethics for bioethics. Now, once librarians begin to develop deeper knowledge, or as data services departments and staff levels grow, roles become more clearly defined and greater levels of services are offered, including consultations and partnerships. Some areas of data services require more focus for health sciences librarians, and the slide contains the examples of those areas. Now let's look at how those levels are laid out. Now, offering data services is not an all or nothing proposition. There are a range of types of support depending on depending both on how much time can be dedicated to data work in your library and how much expertise the people providing the services have. This is an example of how services can evolve as more staff, effort, and resources are allocated to data services. So the first step, outreach. This first step might be to reach out to your research community to raise awareness of issues around open science and open data, data sharing policies, and anything else data related that may affect them. This is a good way to learn about these issues and then begin to make the connection between the library and data within your institution. Now, not all institutions and researchers may make that connection and understand that the library is a resource for them. Now, as knowledge deepens, you can begin creating resources such as research guides that require more time and expertise. It also provides an opportunity for a librarian newly providing data services to take a deeper dive to understand which resources would most benefit their community. Now, this is an asynchronous activity, so it provides time and space to become more knowledgeable and comfortable with this area for someone new to providing these services or for a library new to providing these services. And then as we go deeper, education, whether developing synchronous or asynchronous activities, is another step up actually in terms of both expertise and the time commitment required. This is a point at which specialization is in one of the two tracks, data science or data management. Um, that may, the expertise here may be warranted. Both are wide-ranging areas that benefit from a deeper focus. While it's not impossible to pursue both areas, the expectation that someone would do so is in most cases unrealistic. For example, Princeton University Library's Research Data Services Unit teaches data management workshops, and they're invited to graduate classes to teach about data management for research. Now, data management consultations with researchers, labs, or departments will likely involve questions specific to a discipline or data type beyond the information covered in an introductory course. It therefore makes sense to have the basics well in hand before taking on these types of consultations. While there may still be questions you can't address in the moment, you will at least have the grounding to know how to approach finding the answer. Similarly, consultations on data cleaning, analysis, and visualization may involve questions involving specific data types or more advanced features of tools or programming languages. And it would be difficult to manage without having a solid foundation. However, there are pathways to developing this area of consultation. Often we will request that someone submit a form with their question and all supporting information to give the librarian time to research the question and potentially come up with solutions, or to reach out to other support offices in the institution who may also enhance the consultation support for that meeting. Now, infrastructure projects are not generally something that can be done by an individual. This typically requires a team with deep expertise in data issues, access, discovery, sharing, etc., and with technical expertise. Projects of this nature can take months or even years to develop. For a library to consider taking on a major infrastructure project, its data services should be fairly mature, as institutional buy-in is a critical factor in the success of these projects. So now that you have a little bit of an understanding of the areas of data services and how to grow within data services as your knowledge deepens, um, this is a version of the research life cycle and the services that may be provided within each step. There are several variants of this, but the main takeaway is that data services are needed throughout the research process, and the levels of service we just went through can be applied to any of these areas. Your library's focus can be on one or multiple areas, depending on the resources you can allocate to them and your institution's priorities. Now I will turn it over to April Hobbs.
So why? Why would someone provide data services in libraries, take on this role within their library, or hire for roles within this library? The growth of data services in libraries reflects the evolution of what is recognized as a valid academic output in biomedical research. When this is confined to books, conference papers, and journal articles, services such as searching, systematic review collaborations, cataloging, and content management support these academic outputs. Now, data sets have increasingly been recognized as an important type of academic output and have been included in NIH biosketches since 2015. Data sets are much more complex than journal articles or books in many respects. They can consist of different data types, different file types, including proprietary file types. The size may run to terabytes, petabytes, and beyond, and they may lack the necessary metadata to be reused. So, the support needed to ensure the preservation, discovery, and reuse of data is correspondingly much more varied. Some ways data sets can be supported as academic outputs include providing training and assistance to ensure that data is collected, analyzed, and documented in ways that yield a fair data set. Fair meaning findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Software has also become more recognized as an important academic contribution. Supporting software as an academic output serves two purposes. First, research reproducibility requires that any software used in data collection, cleaning, analysis, or visualization is fully documented. Second, this documentation is needed so that others can use the software, thus increasing its impact. There's a lot that's going on in terms of making data available. making quality metadata, and having things being machine actionable, as well as supporting software and even making research software fair as well. So, the role of libraries should be to support preservation and access to all academic outputs, even as their nature evolves, rather than only the outputs that were traditionally accepted at a given point in time. So that's a quick overview of the history of research data services and some of the roles within them. And we will now take some questions. Are there any questions in the Q&A?
Not at this moment.
All right.
Oh, well, there's one in the chat that says, what about AI? But
Oh, well, AI is becoming more increasingly used in research and data services too, especially as your institution is increasing having you, I mean, they want libraries to have an AI policy. So it depends on what your institution says, what your library's strategic priorities are too, if you're going to include AI in research data services.
we have one more question. How do you strategize to create these roles?
I think a lot of it will deal with what are your strategic priorities for your library and your institution as a whole. So you think about your mission, your strategic plan. Most of the time, if your library is creating a strategic plan, is for 5 years. So is data repository part of your strategic plan? Is increasing your involvement in output at your university? Are you trying to establish a research impact librarian who is able to track research and faculty output? Those are some of the questions that you have to kind of ask when you're planning for these kind of roles. Are you trying to have a specific role that is geared toward, say, my role, for instance, the new one, the assessment librarian? I am here to assess statistics and data for the library on our services and programs. That's also another role that you have to strategize for.
So the question goes on to ask, did you have support from your dean? And I think you addressed this. They were kind of asking about creating data services and filling the roles from the ground up.
Yeah, you kind of have to get your higher ups involved too. They have to have that buy-in to know that this is a priority for your library, to see the value in it too.
Okay. Looks like we're good with the questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move on. Now let's look at the current landscape. So research data services, otherwise known as RDS, have become a critically important topic for academic libraries. The information on this slide was gathered in 2019 from 131 R1 universities. This number has actually grown significantly. A recent journal article that was published in September 2025 in the Journal of Academic Librarianship said that AAU, which stands for the Association of American Universities, their libraries had a total of 321 data-focused roles that were identified across 71 AAU libraries, with only 3 lacking a dedicated data-focused role. Now, I know this is a little bit different than R1 versus AAU, but according to Pratama from 2025, AAU libraries now devote about 2.30% of their staffing to data-focused roles, and many of them maintain dedicated data services pages. In terms of role classification, librarian roles dominated the data set, accounting for 65.11% of all data-focused roles in these libraries. And when we look at all institution types from two-year colleges, bachelor's and master's programs, as well as doctoral colleges, we see that more libraries are getting involved in data services. An ACRL choice paper in 2019 found that in 2012, 60% of responding libraries reported that their library was not involved in RDS. By 2016, just 44.1%, which is 82 of the responding libraries, were not involved in any RDS. So you can start to see that number decreasing, and more libraries are starting or expanding their data services. So services like consulting on metadata standards, data management plans, offering support, and participating in data policy development have all increased since 2011, and we only see that number in pattern growing. Now, most data librarian jobs are at universities with higher research activity. However, a growing number of libraries of all types, including public libraries, are seeking to provide data services. In addition, those jobs aren't solely about data or data skills. Like most library jobs, outreach, making inroads, making connections are a big part of the job. There may be some resistance, so having strong connections and building on them will help people see the library in that data role. You may have the best data resources around, but you still need to make those connections across campus and get buy-in from faculty and researchers in order to be successful. Now, general data management, data repositories, and curation are some of the most common responsibilities, but it really depends on your institution and how data services would fit into your library's mission and work, as well as the needs of your institution. Now, many data librarian positions still require traditional LIS skills, such as instruction and public services. I think this just goes to highlight that data skills can always be learned. They don't necessarily need a background in hard science or data-intensive work. Now, if you look at defining data librarianship by Federer from 2018, that also offers more information on this, which we'll go into on the next slide. Now, in 2018, Federer surveyed data librarians about the skills they considered most important in their roles. Soft skills such as communication, relationship building, writing, and presenting were among the highest ranked skills. More technical skills such as programming languages, data visualizations, and using statistical software were ranked much lower. Technical skills all ranked similarly, with about 30 to 50% of survey respondents saying that technical skills were very important. This shows that there's no single technical skill universally needed, and that data librarians often have a variety of technical skills. The technical skills a data librarian needs will vary by institution. Having the aptitude and willingness to learn is probably more important than knowing a specific software or a specific coding language. Again, much of what a data librarian does will be outreach and networking with researchers. So people skills and communication skills will often be just as important. Now, let's look at the trend that we are calling the Great U-turn of 2022. While data services initially focused on management and curation, technical skills in coding, data literacy, data cleaning, and visualization became increasingly in demand. However, the release and implementation of the NIH DMSP policy prompted a need for greater research data management support, including in libraries that initially provided no data support whatsoever. Researchers sought more help with data management, but coding and technical skills remain in demand. In August 2022, the Nelson Memo addressed free, immediate public access to federally funded research. This emphasizes open access and fair data principles. There continues to be a push for open data practices, so that needs to be incorporated into research data support. However, there's a need for all kinds of data librarians and data services. As we show from our visual here, there's a constant push and pull in terms of what is prioritized. More funders are requiring that data be shared openly. Many publishers, such as PLOS and Nature, ask researchers to share their data, and many others are moving towards supporting open data practices. Efforts across Europe, Latin America, and China are also moving towards more open data practices. So this change is taking place globally. The State of Open Data 2022 notes that NIH continues to invest in a robust data ecosystem, one where its policies and activities keep pace with evolving scientific technologies, opportunities, and stakeholder expectations. The NIH continues to partner with organizations such as DataCite, the Federation of American Societies for Experimental Biology, and the Data Curation Network to support fair and open data. The new NIH DMSP is just one of many steps moving towards more open data practices. That is to say that open data, or open science, isn't going anywhere. The need for skilled librarians who can speak to these topics and support open data at their institutions will continue to increase in the coming years. And I will pass it on to April Wright.
Okay, thank you, April. So next, we're going to talk about next steps for librarians interested in going into data services and, next steps for library leaders looking to recruit data librarians or begin those roles within their libraries. First, we will talk about the different specialties data librarians can pursue. So, what might a data management librarian do? So, if we remember earlier, um, we mentioned that there are two tracks in data services. And then the first that we'll discuss is the data management, um, track. Um, so the titles and roles vary in this track, um, of course, but in general, data management librarians advise on data organization, curate data to be shared, develop metadata to maximize discovery, teach research data management, assist in writing or reviewing data management plans, assist in identifying appropriate repositories for data sharing, and teach and or consult on the use of data collection software. Now, what might a data science librarian do? Data science and data literacy librarians teach and offer consultations in the use of data, including coding, surveys, and data cleaning. So they will do coding, such as in R or Python. Um, they'll use data collection tools, such as RedCap and Qualtrics, cover data cleaning, using coding and OpenRefine, use data analytics tools, SPSS, in Vivo and MATLAB. Also, data visualization using Tableau and coding, and then teach how to perform statistics within a particular programming environment. So as you can see, these responsibilities focus on working with tools and languages rather than conducting data science. Because of this, data sciences are not likely to teach statistical analysis, which tests to run, research design, like advising on validity, power, generalizability, machine learning techniques, or anything that requires deep domain specific knowledge. In general, there may be some differences depending on the priorities at your institution. So as you can see, this list alone is quite a hefty set of responsibilities for one person, since most data librarians do not have expertise across all of these systems, and many of these tools update and change almost constantly. So it's really best to have an idea of what is in the greatest use and demand within an institution in order to support these. For example, one institution may have researchers much more frequently using R, Question Pro, and Tableau, with a smaller but significant percentage using Stata and Power BI. It would be best to hire or develop expertise in those areas. Whereas for another institution where researchers are heavily using both R and Python as well as RedCap, the data librarian's skills will need to be focused on these tools. So it's important to know that Geographic Information System, GIS, tends to be its own concentration, where some librarians have GIS services as their central or sole responsibility because it requires a lot of expertise and knowledge in that area. So, this is something you may want to consider along with the needs of your institution. So, what else do data librarians and other library staff do? Now, the models for providing data services may vary across institutions, and the responsibilities may be split between the data services staff or it may be distributed. So, helping people find data, encouraging open data sharing, and teaching about reproducibility may be responsibilities of people like the library liaisons and informationists within their assigned disciplines. This is a distributed model. The benefit of this model is that liaisons are extending their knowledge of the literature, instruments, and other research support databases and tools. They're just adding data to the mix. In addition, they'll likely be able to develop strong abilities in accessing data since they are focused within one or more sets of disciplines. And they may have greater awareness and deeper knowledge of the data available within their discipline. They may also have a deeper understanding of opportunities for bringing in a data librarian, as well as what and how much data librarians would be able to do. So, how about now? Let me tell you some tips. Here's some tips if you want to develop someone within your institution into a data librarian. Identify someone with an interest, a person who has already sought out training on working with data, or has attended a conference, or is already working with researchers in this capacity. You want to provide ample professional development support so they can continue to grow their skills. You want to provide support making inroads across an institution and connecting them with stakeholders to place the library in that data role and increase awareness of the library as a resource for working with data. Given the backgrounds, the librarians at your institution may already be working with data in different ways. Text mining in humanities and computer science, GIS in social science, humanities, and urban planning, use of library subscriptions data, business analytics, use of large open data sources, computer science, and engineering. Data cannot just be an add-on to their responsibilities. Think of things you can take away so that your librarians can focus on data services. You also want to give time for them to grow into the role and provide clear goals for them to accomplish. If you are hiring a data librarian, the biggest piece of advice we can provide is not to write a kitchen sink job description. Think about whether you want a data librarian or do you want a research impact or assessment librarian? What is it you actually want? What is it you actually need? Think about how fair it would be for one person to, to have all of these roles. As you consider this, consider what specific foci makes sense for your institution and its needs, and draw up a job description based on all of this. Now, if we go to the kitchen sink description, this is an example of a kitchen sink job. We have bolded some of the noteworthy aspects of the job description and included general characteristics of this type of job. Some of the characteristics of a kitchen sink post include multiple responsibilities spanning both data services tracks as well as other responsibilities. We see data management, data curation, and preservation, as well as support with data analysis, creation, and visualization. Now, they're also teaching data literacy and data management, in addition to staffing the service desk for 12 hours per week and serving as a subject liaison for library disciplines. So there's also a large list of required technical skills and software, including R, Python, Power BI, or Tableau. There's no salary listed, there's also no salary commensurate with responsibilities. And it's unclear how the position works within the library. The position might be an ill-fitting position for that department. In this case, you may see that that the position is part of a reference department, which may or may not be made for that role. So you can obviously assess that for your own library and decide where a data librarian makes the most sense. Now let's look at another example. Now, an example of a good job posting. Some of the characteristics that we see here is that it has a clearly outlined scope, and this is one for a data archivist. So this falls very well within the data management and curation track, specifically focusing on archiving data. It includes the reporting line that the position reports to the university archivist, which makes sense, and the director of the university digital conservancy. It also includes the required experience that is relevant to this position. There's a salary posted for this job, and then which makes it a bit more competitive for applicants. So looking at another good example, you can see here that this is also clearly outlined in scope. It's a geospatial librarian focused on supporting GIS and geospatial data services. There's departmental information, which establishes what has been done and where this position fits. You can see here that they will collaborate with other members of the data cooperative and research engagement to develop strategies and partnerships and work with members of the library's technical services and support department. We can see the required technical qualifications align with this position and aren't a laundry list. So people providing GIS services will be familiar with the use of Python and GIS and JSON files and so on, which are used within GIS software. So again, the salary is also posted for this position. So you might ask, how can we hire something so specific when you were just starting and need to cover the breadth of data services? The recommendation here is to determine if the services would be better offered using a distributed model, which I mentioned earlier, or whether there are specific initial needs a data librarian can focus on first. If that's the case, hire for those needs at this time, and then consider having a plan for providing additional services as they're needed. So we've talked about developing a librarian at your institution. Um, and so here are some tips for bringing in a librarian from the outside. Your data services librarian or the data services team will never be able to meet all the institution's needs. So think about what makes sense in relation to the services already provided across campus and in the library, as well as the skills you'll need for someone in that role. Next, consider the market. Data skills are transferable. So, consider that they're being paid in industry, and you don't necessarily have to pay that, but consider that anecdotally, we are seeing more and more of these positions and getting reports of small pools of applicants. So think about all the ways that you can compete, such as pay, and benefits, and other ways of attracting good candidates, such as, being able to work from home or having more control over their schedule. Make your budget for continuing education, time and financial support, right? Especially for homegrown data librarians. And next, you want to make a way for them to be successful. So make space and build opportunities. Make connections with institutional leaders and work across campus to promote data services. You can work with other institutional leaders, such as deans, associate vice presidents, provosts, and so on. Work toward eliminating barriers, such as policies going against data sharing. Consider tenure requirements and other higher level factors that can help those providing data services be successful at the ground level. Now, people from many disciplines can become data librarians. So keep in mind that these skills are transferable. Um, well, that skills are transferable. So if they have the basic building blocks, they can grow. Going from knowing R to teaching Python, for instance. You can try services that are not well received, or you may try services that are not well received and need to move to another service, continuing to build buy-in over several years. So be aware of what is more needed for your institution and communicate that to those you are hiring or have hired so they can be successful in growing their role. This can also help them understand some of the barriers that they may encounter. So data librarians are successful working in an integrated environment, such as liaison specialists, etc. Introduce them to leaders, different stakeholders, and library staff, and make strong connections there. This may also allow you to bundle librarians. So, for example, open access can be grouped with open data in your brochures when you talk about repositories. Think about how you can capitalize on the successes in the library where data services can be added. Maybe you have a project with a researcher and you realize that they are working with data, so you may recommend that the data librarian come in and give a presentation about services they provide. That way, you can integrate your data library into your existing library ecosystem. Now, there are some challenges in starting data services. First, there are limitations to the role, like reproducibility, data literacy, etc. We also see scalability and the skills that each person has. Authority can be a challenge. Researchers may not see the librarian as an authority, even when they are just communicating a policy, such as the NIH DMSP policy. All or all or much of this is on the job learning, even though specializing in data. So, another challenge is getting people to associate the library with data is going to be an ongoing task. So let me turn it over to April Hobbs, who will talk about where to start.
So now you know all about research data services and the potential areas where libraries can go into, particularly if they're starting or expanding. But where can you start, particularly if you want to become a data librarian and grow in your skills? We highly recommend the MLA Data Services Specialization. You can check out their website with more information about it. These are the kinds of accomplishments that you receive upon completing the data services specialization. Almost everything that we provide that's data related out of NNLM contributes to this. It's a great place for people to get started and understand what is happening with data services and growing their skills. Some of the competencies that you will get through this specialization include applying principles of data literacy, establishing and advancing data services, supporting research data best practices across the data life cycle, applying knowledge of research methods, research ethics and rigor, and open science practices, and providing training and consultation for data-related topics. We also have a number of offerings. I mentioned all of these that I listed here also contribute to MLA's data services specialization, including both of our full courses, our fun courses, the Fundamentals of Health Sciences Research Data Management and Fundamentals of Health Data Science, our webinars on data management plans using the DMP tool, and an overview of the NIH DMSP, as well as on-demand modules about research data management, data sharing, supporting open science, and data ethics. We also have several data resources through NLM, including the data pathways, data glossary, the data repository finder, and the NIH data management and sharing policy toolkit. And that is the end of our class, and we will be open to questions.
So there is a question in the Q&A. It's on the semantics. So RDS, where does scholarly communications fall under or in this conversation? That is an overlap with publishing literacy or even collections as open access. And does this fit into that context, in particular with open science?
Ooh, that kind of like there is some overlap, but it's also like there's so many different things that you can do when you're establishing data services. Scholarly communications, I mean, we can go back to the example of the research impact librarian. A lot of them deal with scholarly communications and the impact of publishing on the image of like your library, your university, the academic institution you're at. I feel like it falls under that. I don't know that answers the question, but there's just so many different things you can put under establishing research data services, just trying to figure out like what's your priority in that way.
Yeah, it sounds like from that you've already kind of touched on the answer. And Tracy, who asked it, is thanking you. And but it's a layer, and yes, that helps. So
Okay. Are there any other questions?
don't see any right now.
I also see Justin in the chat, and Justin's great. He's from NCDS too, so I see he answers some questions.
Yes, he put a link into the YouTube playlist, which was very helpful. And ncds@nnlm.gov if you want to get in touch. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the survey in, and while you all wrap things up.
Okay, well, we don't have anything else to tell you. So we're all out. So if you have any any addition. Oh, wait a minute. A question
Okay.
came
I,
into
yes,
the
here we
Q&A.
go. Yeah. Is there a difference between CHIS level 1 and 2 or DSS level 1 or 2? So I can go ahead and take this. Yes,
Okay.
CHIS is our CHIS. That's our consumer health information specialty that MLA offers. And DSS is the data services. So yeah, they are quite different. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, we also, yeah, Justin put the link into the data specialization services. You can find more information about CHIS or Consumer Health Information Specialty on the MLA website as well. So yeah, if you want to explore that some more, please just email us at nto@utah.edu, and we'll be happy to help you out with either of those specializations. I'm going to go ahead and add the link to our survey again. So please take time to complete the survey, and at the end of it, it will give you instructions on how to claim MLACE. And this also counts to some of the credit for a DSS specialization certificate. So the question is, if DSS covers all study required for a data librarian, I don't know if exactly if it covers all of it. Like I think the comment too was there's a lot of on-the-job training that April might have mentioned, but I sure
Yeah.
believe that it's a really great start.
It's good to get the basics and that kind of framework, I would think. So the DSS does cover a good portion of stuff to get you started, but a lot of it's on the job training and on the job learning kind of stuff too.
And then there's always going to be development, continuous professional development.
And you can also network a lot with other data librarians. I highly recommend it. There's a Slack channel for, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it now. But there's a Slack channel that's really good. There's a certain what was that data verse one? I'm trying to go back on the slides to see what it's talking about. It's also really good for knowledge. Data curation network, they have stuff. Data cure. Thanks, Justin. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of different places you can network and just get more information too. And everyone's very helpful if you have a question or just kind of stuck on something and trying to find more resources. I think our profession is very friendly and knowledgeable and very helpful in that regard.
As far as upcoming webinars, I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the chat to creating data management plans with a DMP tool that's coming up. So please take time to check that out and sign up. There's another question in the Q&A. What to study after MLIS, Python, and SQL from another source will help to be data librarian. So I guess it's asking for recommendations on what else you could study.
I mean, honestly, learning one of those is also really good, like R, Python, SQL. Learning how to use Power BI is actually really good too. Power BI is part of the Microsoft products. So just trying to get more knowledge and applying your skills to a project, like Justin said in the comments, um, will help you, get the skills and the knowledge necessary. And Justin posted a link to a book with suggestions for projects. Oh, yes, carpentries is also a good source for pursuing skills. Thank you, Matt. Margie, there's also a class on Thursday, I think, with the Power BI.
Yes,
Like,
yes, you're absolutely correct. I'll go ahead and put that in there. That is a class that's being offered from Region, you see,
is it 5?
Region 7. So it's on, it's actually part 2. So I'm sure there's a recording for part 1. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link in the chat for the uh, place to register for it. And there's a link. Oh, somebody already beat me to it. Thank you, Mary. You're doing my job. Appreciate that. Yeah, so we have a lot of really great classes that are available. And if you are interested in more of those, you can go to nnlm.gov and click on training and available classes and limit it to the data services specialization. And it will guide you to the classes that we have available. Plus, we've also shared a lot of great resources here today about other places that you can learn. Also, we do have some on-demand classes too as well that you'll find on our site.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel or select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.